This current situation happened in Syria, in the southern part of Syria, when, according to reports, some Bedouin tribe members actually murdered a Druze person on the street, just robbed him or something and killed him, apparently in broad daylight. And so to try and get control of the situation, Shirah sent Syrian troops into the area. Well, apparently the Druze got some either bad information or somebody intentionally gave some disinformation and said, no, they're after us. The Syrians are coming after us. And then that started some clashes. And then once the Syrian troops were fired upon, then they started firing back. And then you just had this whole explosion. Ended up, at least as of yesterday, there were over 300 have been killed. Lots of people were fighting. Then I think the Syrians sent even more reinforcements into the area, which caused the Druze to fight even harder. And then the violence escalated, etc. And then into this, Israel said that our Druze brothers were going to launch this attack to take care of them and to help them out. Here's how Netanyahu put it.
My brothers, the Druze citizens of Israel, the situation in Syria, the situation in southwestern Syria is very serious. The IDF is operating. The Air Force is operating. Other forces are operating. We are acting to save our Druze brothers and to eliminate the regime's gangs.
You know, when I heard that first statement, or that phrase, our Druze brothers, I'm thinking, you know, Netanyahu is not a warm and cuddly kind of a guy. Doesn't strike me as the kind that's going to say, hey, we're going to loan out the IDF and the Israeli Air Force to you to use in your country to keep our brothers safe there. Gary, if you can put that map up of the region, let me show you kind of where some of this has happened. This is going to kind of make some things make sense. These, that brown shaded area there, those are where a lot of Druze population of people live. You see some of that's up in Lebanon and Beirut, and then in the eastern part of Syria around Damascus. And then there's even some in Israel in the northern part there by Haifa, as you see. And then over, they're concentrated. The most of them are in this area of Syria, as you see on the map in the lower right-hand corner. And that is where a lot of this violence took place. That's where a lot of it started. And literally within days, all of a sudden, Israel claims that it used its military to attack the presidential palace and the Ministry of Defense, where the operations, as they said, were being conducted. But you have to think, now, that seems like an awfully high escalation because of a local disturbance in one town in the southern part of Syria, when Israel has virtually no history of being really concerned about the Druze and, you know, taking up their cause with Syria, etc. So we have to wonder what else is going on. If you could put that map back up there, Gary, you see that kind of in the center of this, it's a grayed out area. It's called the Golan Heights. That is technically still a part of Syria, but it's where Israel captured in one of its wars against the Arab nations many, many years ago, and has continued to occupy that. Well, they moved up even further, and I don't have that particular graphic on this map, but they once the Bashar al-Assad fell, they moved further beyond the Golan Heights, I think within like 30 miles, maybe even less than that, of Damascus. They moved quite a bit in there. And Israel wants to maintain its population there, or its position there. They have been asked by many people, why are you still in Syria? You know, you should leave. And he keeps not doing it. And in fact, Gary, if you can put that other headline up there, this is what Netanyahu is also saying. No Syrian forces are to head south of Damascus, which is an area that must be demilitarized. He said, we have set a clear policy in a video statement, demilitarizing the area south of Damascus from the Golan Heights to the Druze Mountains is the one red line. The second red line is protecting the brothers in the Druze in the mountains. He keeps using that term there. We will not allow military forces to descend south of Damascus. We will not allow the Druze to be harmed in Jabal Druze, says Netanyahu. Okay, listen, that's just doublespeak there. I mean, the evidence is very clear. What Netanyahu is trying to do is carve out a part of Syria. I mean, to tell another sovereign country that your own military cannot move south of its capital city. I mean, that's just at the face value. That's like, what? What are you saying? Because what you're telling me is right now that Syria and Shirah does not and will not have control of his own country. And now he's faced with the prospect, Shirah is, does he press an issue? Does he go a little bit further? And does he risk literal war with Israel? Here's how Shirah himself said on Syrian television.
وهنا لجأ الكيان الإسرائيلي إلى استهداف موسع للمنشآت المدنية والحكومية لتقويض هذه الجهود، مما أدى إلى تعقيد الوضع بشكل كبير ودفع الأمور إلى تصعيد واسع النطاق لولا التدخل الفعال للوساطة الأمريكية والعربية والتركية التي أنقذت المنطقة من مصير مجهول. فكنا بين خيارين: الحرب المفتوحة مع الكيان الإسرائيلي على حساب أهلنا الدروز وأمنهم وزعزعة استقرار سوريا والمنطقة بأسرها، وبين فسح المجال لوجهاء ومشايخ الدروز للعودة إلى رشدهم وتغليب المصلحة الوطنية على من يريد تشويه سمعة أهل الجبل الكرام. فلسنا ممن يخشى الحرب، ونحن الذين قضينا أعمارنا في مواجهة التحديات والدفاع عن شعبنا، لكننا قدمنا مصلحة السوريين على الفوضى والدمار.
Well, we'll see how that works out, because I don't know if you could all read all the subtitles there in the bottom, but he's basically saying we had to choose between war and surrendering our brothers to Druze. He also uses that term, and the people of the mountain, as they're called. And, you know, you have this situation where Shirah is trying to put on a good face and to say, you know, we care about our people and we care about stability, which I'm sure he does care about stability. And he's trying to placate enough of these tribes, which is going to be very, very difficult. That's the reason why there was a civil war in Syria from 2011 onward, because of the Bashar al-Assad group was unable to do that. So now he's got the same issues and some of the same fault lines that were there before, and he's trying to navigate that. And then you have Israel trying to take advantage of that, taking advantage of that in the south by carving out yet more of Syrian territory, and now telling him, the leader of is Syria, that he can't even go south in his own country beneath his capital city. And of course, Shirah puts on a big face of this. He has to, but here's the problem. He is powerless to do anything about it. If the government of Syria under Bashar al-Assad, when he had ostensible control of at least his army, and he was unable to do anything. You remember how many times the United States, whether it was I don't remember if Obama, but certainly Biden and Trump in their previous times, they both launched attacks into Syria for various reasons. They weren't able to do anything about it. Syria was the weakest of this so-called fertile Islamic crescent that was allegedly against Israel, etc. They were the weakest link in there, and they were always weak. So they're even weaker now that you have Shirah trying to recover and build up the Syrian army, etc. So they definitely cannot take on Israel. So they're really powerless to do something against it. But by Israel moving in there, they also undercut his authority even within Syria, because everyone can see now that he's powerless to do anything about it. And they know that, and they see that Israel just, at least allegedly, came to the aid of the Druze in the north. And so now then you can see that there's not going to be any kind of stability for the foreseeable future. Why would they? The Druze now are even further away from doing anything of stability towards Shirah. So by taking this action here, there is now more instability in Syria and by extension in the Middle East. Because if Israel wants security on its northern border, this is not the way to do it. Because now then you have a continuation of this situation where Israel wants to solve every problem with the barrel of a gun or a missile fired from an aircraft. And that has tactical utility periodically. But as we keep seeing, it solves nothing. The situation with the Houthis in Yemen remains an open sore and remains a source of periodic conflict. The situation with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the situation with the Palestinians in the West Bank remain ongoing fighting. The fighting continues on there. There is still fighting despite the alleged ceasefire in Lebanon with Hezbollah, yet that continues to be attacked as well. So Israel keeps attacking into that area. And then we have this situation in Iran, which is basically just kind of everybody stopped shooting for a while and everybody's looking around, but nothing has been solved or solved. No diplomacy has even been attempted. As we put on our show yesterday with Professor Ted Postal, even the nuclear issue is far from solved. And in fact, now it's worse than it was before because we don't have any international inspectors on the ground anymore. So we're just up to the hoping that Iran doesn't take action there. And you know that Israel is not keen to that. And as soon as they can lick their wounds enough and get enough missiles built back up and potentially try and solve the missile defense problem that they had from Iran because they were increasing, as we've seen now in open source reporting, that the longer the war went on, the more effective the Iranian missiles were and the less effective the integrated air defense for Israel became. So they have to try and figure that out. But I promise you, with 100% certainty, nobody in Israel, least of all Benjamin Netanyahu, has given up his hope and this goal and this dream of destroying Iran. Now they just got to try to figure out a better way to do it, which is one of the reasons why we're concerned about whether that might compel Iran to move to a weapon. They may calculate that we don't know when Israel is going to attack us again, so we have to do what we can to prepare now, and the best defense we can have is a nuclear weapon. You're giving them every reason in the world to come to that conclusion. We just have to hope that doesn't, because that will cause even more instability. We'll talk about that on a future show in the region and possibly even elsewhere in the world.